The Panthers preseason is over, and hey, what do you know? The offense finally scored a touchdown. So, how are y'all feeling? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure to subscribe or follow our show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Friday of next week, this is the last Friday until January, hopefully February, I'll be answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions either at me or DM me over on Twitter to get those questions into me. And there's been people who have DM'd me on Instagram. So at Julian Council over there, if you want to get those questions in, just don't ask to follow me because I'm not going to let you. Either way, at me or DM me to get those questions in for this week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag. And then starting off week one on Wednesdays, we'll have the weekly Wednesday mailbag throughout the rest of the regular season here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The Carolina Panthers wrap up their preseason with a 26-17 loss to Detroit Lions. Scoreline, don't really care, honestly. But the Panthers 0-3 in the preseason. The preseason, thankfully, is over. As great as it is to have football back, it's just, God, I mean, it's midnight. We're Locked On Panthers After Dark. Got 28 live viewers right now on YouTube, so thank you. And that's why it's important to subscribe to YouTube, because I go live after every Carolina Panthers game and anytime there's breaking news or anything like that. And we'll be live on Tuesday nights for the Wednesday mailbag. I know it's on Tuesday, but Wednesday I record the shows the day before. Don't ask questions. So yeah, we're up here late. It's 12:02 Eastern Standard Time, 9:02 Pacific Time. So hopefully everyone out there who's tuned in live is having a great time. And everyone who's out there who's listening to the podcast recorded, I hope you're doing great as well. So yeah, I mean, love having the preseason, love having football, really having football, not the preseason. Like, what are we doing tonight when with 1:40 left in the game at 11:14 Eastern? Why on earth are we reviewing a touchdown and whether Cameron Peoples caught the ball and scored or didn't? And just tough luck for that guy to have his first touch and to fumble, then later on to have that one called as a fumble into the end zone. And I am still kind of just confused by all of that and how that was even the case. Don't really care. I was just a little bit confused by how that was the result of that play. Tough luck for him. He wasn't going to be on the roster anyways. Now I'm kind of not sure he'll be on the practice squad. Looks like probably Spencer Brown's headed to the practice squad here in Carolina. So it was really wild that we're sitting here deliberating about whether that was a catch or a touchdown or not late in a preseason game on a Friday evening when no one wants to be there. I just feel bad for a lot of the players. Like, I'm looking at Jared Goff being like, this guy, there's no way he wants to be here right now. Like, this dude definitely wants to be at home, but instead he's out here watching this preseason game. But let's get into what we saw from the preseason action from the Carolina Panthers on Friday night as they faced off against the Detroit Lions, who they'll see again in about 8 weeks' time. First off, talk about Bryce Young. I thought we saw some good stuff from Bryce yet again. I have not felt at all at any point against the Jets, the Giants, or tonight against the Lions that Bryce Young has looked out of place. Never have I felt that way. He has looked calm, cool, and collected. People always talk about that California cool. We said about Sam Darnold, even though on Sundays did not look that way. But Bryce Young has been that so far, where he has not had ideal pressure. He has not had the ideal receiver setup, as, of course, you had DJ Chark not out there today. Laviska Shenault, who doesn't run with the ones anyways. He's known for concussion. Terrace Marshall with the back issue. And then, of course, Damiere Byrd. He now has an injury settlement. Is not a Carolina Panther anymore, as they had put him on IR. That would have ended his season had they not gotten a settlement. Just not an ideal situation for him in certain times, and especially when the playbook is very vanilla and they didn't open things up until it felt like tonight they did that. But Bryce was able to utilize his legs and show you some things that you would have seen if you watched in the last 2 years as a starting quarterback down there in Tuscaloosa at Alabama for Nick Saban. He had that scramble on that first drive to get a couple yards. You saw on the second drive, which was a touchdown, getting 13 yards for that touchdown. Later on, he threw to Adam Thielen. That's the Bryce Young that I fell in love with when watching him at Alabama. That's the Bryce Young that I could not believe the Carolina Panthers were able to actually get at number 1 overall. That's a guy who is so smooth and so confident to where I have no concerns heading into the year. When I look at the quarter, like the offense, like one of my least concerns is Bryce Young. I do have concerns at the offensive line in a way with Ike Ekwonu, who gave up another sack tonight, by the way. And that's not a great development, but I'm hoping, and I still believe that Ike will be fine long-term. Just the preseason, not his best efforts. But now he has about 16 days to get it together and be ready to go when they face off against the Falcons in a couple of weeks on September 10th. So won't get overly concerned about that, but that has been a little bit of a concern. But Bryce Young, he's not my concern at all. He's looked back there. He has processed quickly. He's made the right decisions, has not even come close. And I understand. He came into tonight having only thrown 12 passes with 7 for 12. Tonight in the game, he ended up being 7 for 12. So we went out there and put up the same output he put in the first 2 preseason games in one night, had 73 yards, touchdown at a 103.8 rating, had the 3 carries for 21 yards, of course, showing that great scrambling ability and some of the things that you would see from him at Alabama, where he was able to extend plays and make the right decisions. At no point has he put the ball in harm's way at all. He will eventually. Like, I mean, hell, I saw that dude throw a pick 6 in the national championship game, the Keely Ringo, that ended it. It ended 41 years of just despair for Georgia. So he'll throw picks. Hopefully, I would love to get to that point where the Panthers are in the Super Bowl and Bryce Young can throw an interception. Obviously, don't want that to happen. Like, he'll make mistakes, but we haven't seen him make those mistakes. Hasn't gotten that many opportunities to do it, but has made all the right decisions so far. I'm not concerned about him. I think that he had a fairly solid preseason. Like, I was on Bleacher Report earlier and I was asking people, hey, would you have it as great, good, fair, or poor? It's not poor. It's not great. Fair would be fine because it's like, all right, he didn't get too many opportunities. It's not like the offense went out there and looked all that good. They had the 2 scoring drives tonight, had the long drive that looked pretty similar to the field goal drive last week against the Giants that then again ended in a field goal. Good to see Eddie Pinheiro back out there. Had the touchdown drive where really good throw to Adam Thielen, and they had a good connection. So I thought it's either a good or fair preseason performance for Bryce Young. I think everyone should feel pretty confident in the guy that they have, because looking at him, this is exactly why they wanted him, because he's someone who can go out there, who can look confident in the pocket, who can make the right decisions, who can process, and who can give your team an opportunity. And I think that Bryce Young will give this Panthers team an opportunity to win games, unlike the guys that they had over the last 3 seasons when Matt Rhule was a head coach here. Second kind of takeaway, Adam Thielen, as I mentioned briefly there, looks like he's going to be the de facto wide receiver 1 to start out. Is he a true number 1 wide receiver in today's NFL? Of course not, but still, Adam Thielen's a solid player, and I've felt that way since they signed him, that this season, I think Adam Thielen will be good for the Panthers. He was good last year with Kirk Cousins and that excellent offense in Minnesota. I think he'll be good for the Carolina Panthers this year as well. Had 4 receptions for 48 yards, 5 targets, and a touchdown on Friday evening. He did go down with that injury. Frank Reich said afterwards that he had his wind knocked out of him. I don't know why he was jawing at the Lions. Maybe it was just some old NFC North kind of hate there that was going on between him, but he came right back out there. Of course, was able to get that touchdown. I think Adam Thielen's going to be great for this team this year. I don't think he's going to have 1,000 yards. I could see him having 700 yards like he had again last year. And they can get that at Adam Thielen, an age 33 season, I think his 11th year in the NFL. I'll take it. So I'm happy about what I saw from Adam Thielen in the preseason. I think there's a good connection there with him and Bryce. Want to see that same connection with DJ Chark whenever he comes back from the hamstring issue. We saw that first throw out there, 14 yards to Jonathan Mingo. He's going to be a player for this team. I like Mingo moving forward. I don't know if he's going to be a big-time guy for them, but I do like what I've seen so far from him out of the preseason. So you want to look at the preseason, have your concerns. There's also positives. The way that Bryce conducted himself, the way he was able to show the scrambling ability, his connection with Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, the little spurts that you've seen from him. There are positives to see from his offense that finally showed some life on Friday evening. Chandler Zavala looks like he's your right guard until Austin Corbett's back. Whether that is week 5 or that's week 11, I don't know, but he's the guy. And Frank Reich wasn't willing to say that Zavala would be the starting right guard. I can't remember the exact word he used, but it's something along the lines of ideal that he wanted. Of course, he told us about 10, 12, 11 days ago that going to the final preseason game, he wanted to have his top 5, and Zavala was out there again running every rep with the ones. He's their guy until Austin Corbett comes back, and it's good. He went out there. I mean, again, it was against the Detroit Lions backup, so it wasn't like he was going up against the same kind of big uglies he's going to see week in and week out in the NFL. But those guys who are out there are also probably going to be on the roster and get opportunities rotating in, and he held his own. Did not see any sort of issues with him. Again, Nick, he gave up that sack. We'll see how that develops. I'm still not overly concerned. I just think he had a bad preseason. Now, got to wash it away, work with James Campen, and don't let that be a trend heading into the regular season when they face off against the Falcons and Saints in week 1 and 2. Going into this, I had told y'all when looking at position battles in the bubble and also just a couple of things I wanted to see heading into the final preseason game, that 6 wide receiver spot. The Carolina Panthers, once I was speaking to somebody over text today who's close to the team, and I was asking them, like, hey, what are they going to do here? And they were telling me because of the injuries, again, you got Terrace at the back, you have Damiere Byrd, who's not even here in Carolina anymore, DJ Chark dealing with a hamstring, not serious. That's what they proclaim. We'll see how serious it actually is. And then Laviska Shenault, who's on the 4th of 5 stages of concussion protocol, he'll be good to go come week 1 unless something else happens. But he's fine to go. They may need to carry a 6 wide receiver. Had they not had those issues, it's possible that they would have been fine with 5, knowing that Raheem Blackshear has been the primary punt returner and just returner in general on special teams, that they may not need a wide receiver. But looking at it right now, it feels like out of necessity, they're going to have to carry someone until they know what their health status is. And Derek Wright appears to be that guy. I was looking at him, Shi Smith, Javon Wims, and a little bit Gary Jennings as the 4 guys vying for that final spot, thinking that Shi would have the opportunity. And when they came out there to start off the game, they started off in 12 personnel. That's 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And when they first ran 11 personnel on second down, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, the first receiver out there among those 4 that I talked about this week, really the 3, not talking about Jennings, but Wims, Wright, and Smith, was Derek Wright. And once the Panthers went off the field, Derek Wright was out there with his pads off on the sideline, which would kind of lead you to believe that he's in a pretty good spot to be on the roster. Now, you watch his performance, he was able to, make a business decision. It was a bad throw by Bryce, and he would have got killed if he tried to actually catch the ball if it had been on a line. Maybe he would have caught it and held on, which would have helped his cause. He didn't get a reception. He really had 2 targets. He has only 1 recorded target because the other one was a penalty or was a pass interference. He was being held on that. I thought he was good against the Jets, one of the lone bright spots. Didn't get to see him last week because of a knee injury. And then tonight, it's not like he was overwhelming, but he had a good offseason program, and they see him more often than all of us during practice. So for whatever reason, it looks like Derek Wright could be your wide receiver 6, but I'm also not so sure because they're going to have to look back at the tape and figure out what they want to do. I think Shi Smith will make more sense, but if Derek Wright is who they think is the guy who's going to help them out, we'll see how that works out. And the one final thing offensively, Frank Reich, I was listening to CBS broadcast. I'm sure all of y'all were watching it. Matt Ryan actually did a pretty good job. Okay, cool. I was thinking too when he came on, I looked at Tiki. He's like, good thing that's not Rondé, because I know how Panther fans feel about Rondé Barber, and I could not imagine having a nationally televised preseason game and then having Matt Ryan and Rondé Barber both up there, where I thought Matt was actually pretty good. Tiki, I think he's good too, and then Andrew Catalan, whatever. I think he's a good guy. Just another Syracuse dude calling games on TV. Frank Reich was saying how they don't know what their offense is going to look like just yet. They're still trying to figure that out. And I know one thing I didn't see in the preseason was a tight end, a position that had been an endangered species over the last couple of seasons with Matt Rule here. And really the last 5 years with Greg Olsen breaking his foot those 2 years and Ian Thomas trying to step up, and he showed some promise, but that never carried over. And he kind of is who he is at this point in time. We hadn't seen the tight end per play. We haven't seen like in 6 seasons. But now you're thinking of Hayden Hurst that you would, and maybe that Thomas and Trimble could develop. And Tommy Trimble had a 21-yard reception, but otherwise hasn't really done a lot as a tight end in the preseason so far. Same thing with Ian Thomas. And then Hayden Hurst, only 1 target, 1 reception for 5 yards. We'll see more. We did not see Laviska Shenault line up in the backfield trying to play like a Deebo Samuel role, which we had heard that he had been doing in training camp down in Spartanburg. We haven't seen that. We have not seen what this offense is going to look like. We've seen bits and pieces of what it potentially could be, but it's all been fairly vanilla. We've seen some positives, seen some negatives, but overall, it's just not a finished product. And that's the thing about this team. And I was talking about this on the Friday mailbag, asking people what their expectations are. And I do appreciate a lot of people who DM me. And I would ask you, please DM me. Let me know what your expectations are going into the season realistically for this team. it's going to take time for them to get to where they want to be. I thought that they took another positive step forward to the season. Maybe Frank Reich is a bunch of coach speak when he said, hey, the preseason results, I'm not overly concerned about all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he's got to be concerned about some of the things that he's saying. I just think that this team took a step forward tonight and that it's going to take some time for the offense to get where it wants to be. But overall, it's going to be better than what we've seen the last couple of years. Now, will that result into the playoffs? I don't know. But I like what I see out of Bryce. I like Thielen. Zavala stepping up at right guard. That looks to be a more settled position than it was last Friday. And of course, the 2 Saturdays ago. So the Carolina Panthers head into the regular season with an offense that is still under work, but an offense that has a quarterback that I think everyone should be ready to go to war with over the next 18 weeks in the regular season. Now, who are going to be the guys that are going to be on the 53? I'll give you my final predictions once we get to Tuesday's show, but I got some roster thoughts as it's going to be tough to figure out who is going to be on this roster here in Carolina. So we'll talk about some of the roster moves, some of the bubble guys that are out there on Locked On Panthers here in just a moment. Oh, but before we get there, y'all, Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy football and the best place for best ball. August is here. You know what that means? The official start of fantasy football drafting month. By the way, tomorrow morning, whenever I wake up, I will actually head up to my friend's fantasy draft league as we have our draft up there in Banner Elk. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every single week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back and even bigger with $15 million of prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July. I get it. It's late August, so still don't wait around. Get your Best Ball team set up right away. Visit underdogfantasy.com to find them in the App Store. Okay, let's do it again. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Locked On. All right, sorry for the long pause. Was hoping that my computer would start charging because it wasn't. Now it is, so we're good to go. Don't want to just randomly cut off live here as we're live on YouTube. Again, make sure to subscribe to the show. You can check out us on YouTube, and if you ever miss a live episode, check out the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast here on Locked On Panthers. All right, looking at the roster and just looking at the 53 men, you got to be down. Everyone in the NFL, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the United States of America, you got to be down to 53 men by 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. I'm looking at it right now. These are the guys, not 53. These are the guys who I know for sure are going to be on the roster from just conversations I've had and just also conventional wisdom. Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, Matt Corral. Those are your 3 quarterbacks. Running back, Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Raheem Blackshear, all on the roster for sure. Wide receiver, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Tight end, for sure on the roster, Hayden Hurst, Ian Thomas, Tommy Trimble. Offensive line, for sure on the roster, Ike Ekwonu, Brady Christensen, Bradley Bozeman, Chandler Zavala, Taylor Moton, Cade Mays. So that's 20 guys. 6, 9, 14. Yes, 20 guys that I have on offense right now for sure. Defensive line, without a doubt in my mind, Derek Brown, Shai Tuttle, Deshaun Williams, Henry Anderson. That's 4. Outside linebacker, we got 6, y'all. And I did not think that we'd be here when they opened up camp a month ago. Brian Burns, Justin Houston, Marquise Haynes, DJ Johnson, Etor Gross-Matos, Amari Barno. Those are the 6 men. They're an outside linebacker, inside linebacker for sure. Shaq Thompson, Frankie Louvu, Deion Jones, Kamu Grugier-Hill. No doubts there. Cornerback, 5, Horn, Jackson, Henderson, Taylor, Hill, and nickel, Jeremy Chin. At safety, Von Bell, Xavier Woods, Sam Franklin, Jamie Robinson. That's 24 on defense. Then special teams, JJ Jansen, forever, Johnny Hecker, Eddie Pinheiro. Those are your specialists. So 3 plus 24, it's 27 plus 20. And that is what? 47? So I got 47 guys for sure. Let me do my math again. 8, 12, I think, wait, I can't do math. I'm so bad at math. Hold on. I'm doing this live. Okay, 4, 8. So we got 40 linemen, 4 outside linebackers. That's 8. That's 12. Then that's 17. And then that's 5. It's 22. So I messed it up. 22. Whatever. 22 on defense. I don't know. Where did I get? Oh, no. I got 6. It's 24. It's 24 on defense. I had the right to the first time. This is terrible podcasting by your boy. So, yeah, 27 plus 20. So 47 people. That means they got 6 more guys they got to figure out. I'm just trying to just spitball here when thinking about it. Like quarterback, they're set. Running back, they're set. I asked somebody tonight, Spencer Brown going to make the roster? They said no. So Spencer Brown probably headed to the practice squad if he makes it. Wide receiver, because of the injuries. The 5 guys I've talked about. Thielen is healthy. Chark is not. Mingo is. Marshall's not. Chenault is not either. So 3 of your 5 wide receivers that are on the roster for sure are not healthy. The Panthers have to protect themselves by going out there and keeping one of these dudes. Now, just because they keep someone does not mean it's the initial. The roster is ever evolving. Just because they keep someone on a roster cutdown day does not mean that guy will make it to week 1. Understand that. Tight end, I think Gio Ritchie, because of special teams, has a good chance. And the Panthers are lacking some of those primary special teams guys. So he's probably on it. Stephon Selvin didn't play a single game in the preseason. So he's definitely not on the roster. O-line, they're going to have to carry, I think, 8. I got 6 right now. And I would say Nash Jensen, it would make more sense to go out there and invest in a young guy. And when Dan Morgan, the assistant general manager here, said earlier this week that they didn't want to mention some of the younger guys that they liked, I think, or the names at least, I think Nash Jensen is one of them. And I would rather keep him and develop him than one of those vested veterans like McCray or Irving, who really haven't been that good and whose contracts are guaranteed if they're on the roster during week 1. So you could probably cut them. And they're also, Irving's injured right now. You can cut him and then sign him after week 1 and have him on your roster. I just don't know if they need to be on the roster week 1. So I don't know if the Panthers should be risking Nash Jensen, who's played a ton of football, which, hey, we've seen the quarterbacks experience. It matters. Same thing about offensive lineman. He's played 70 games in college. The experience helps, and I think he'll probably be on the roster. He's someone I'm looking at. And then, maybe they keep Irving to do it. Just, I don't know. I feel like they would have to have 8. And in defensive line, that's one thing I was looking for tonight. What was going to happen there in the middle of the defense? Looking at the actual starting lineup, they had Shai Tuttle as they starting like nose tackle, where Raekwon Williams is lined up at defensive end. They're going to be, moved all over the defensive line this year. So don't get overly caught up in, who's a DN, who's a nose tackle and all that. But still, you want to know who that nose tackle could be primarily if you need that as far as a base goes. And now that Marquand McCall's not here, and Tuttle was always going to be able to play that interior spot. Same thing with Derek Brown whenever he comes back. Well, when the season starts, not whenever he comes back. When the season starts and games start mattering, he'll be in that spot as well. But they need to have more than those 2, Deshaun Williams and Henry Anderson. And I didn't see really anything from any defensive lineman tonight that would lead me to think that, like, okay, yeah, those guys are solidly on the roster. So I'm very curious to see what they do. I imagine it'd be shocking to me if they don't use their waiver spot to go find another defensive lineman who they feel fits their scheme. Because I just don't see it with the other guys. Raekwon Williams looked good last week, did nothing on Friday night. So we'll see how that pans out. Outside linebacker, yeah, they're probably set there. Kobe Jones is someone who, like Yetur Gross-Matos, started every single one of these games. I didn't see him really stand out. Was fine in the run game. Didn't get after the passer at all. So we'll see. He's probably a practice squad guy if they can keep him around. Inside linebacker's fine. Corner, Stan Thomas Oliver. I know he's listed as a backup at nickel to J.C. Horn, or Jeremy Chin, rather. He's someone special teams wise that you want to keep around. Now he has an injury. How serious is that injury? Is that going to impact his roster status? That's all TBD. This is, out of all the years, like last year, I had no qualms. I knew exactly who's going to be on the roster. Like nothing surprised me. The one that I was a little bit surprised by was Justin Burris not being on it. And I had asked somebody like days before, like, hey, is Burris on? I was like, yeah, Burris is on the roster. He's like, no, it's not going to happen. So I did my prediction, didn't have Burris. And I was like the only person I think out there who didn't have Justin Burris, just from the conversation I had. But I knew who was on the roster then. And even like the last 2 seasons, it's really been that easy. But this year, new coaching staff, seeing McCall get cut early in the week, it's kind of hard to predict what the Carolina Panthers are going to do here. And the injuries don't help. It's a fluid situation. And Frank Reich pretty much said that too after the game, just trying to figure out what their numbers are going to be. They had some competition they want to figure out. But again, by my total, 24 defensive guys, 3 on special teams, that's 27. Then you got 20 on offense. So 47, you got to find 6 more. It's not that hard to figure out those spots. It's just trying to figure out. It's not hard to figure out where they need them, but it's kind of hard to figure out who are the 6 guys they want to carry. And then after that, who's actually going to be on the roster once we get to, I guess, Labor Day on September 4th. So that's some TBD stuff there. All right, let's take another pause here, come back, and then look at a few other things from the preseason game and give some final thoughts as we close out the Carolina Panthers preseason here in just a moment. But before we get there, guys, it's football season. It's here, and sports, concerts, all that stuff's always going on, and buying tickets to your favorite events, it really shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you with 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress of Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's try to close this thing out. We are nearing 12:30 a.m. Saturday morning, August 26th, and there are 76 of you sickos up here with me live on YouTube. God bless each and every one of you, because I have no idea why on earth you're watching this, but I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate everyone who's listening to this now on their podcast feeds, but thank you for checking out the show. Again, I'll be live after every Panthers game. Probably about 45 minutes after every game, I'll be live on YouTube talking about, of course, what happened in the game and thinking about mailbags throughout the week. On Wednesdays, we'll be on Tuesdays live on YouTube, and then podcast feed on Wednesday, but live anytime Panthers have a game, live breaking news, that kind of stuff. So appreciate everyone who's here live with me right now. Over 70 people here at 12:27, August 26th a.m. That's crazy. Okay, so some other things from the game that I wanted to point out. Eddie Pinheiro kicked for the first time in the preseason, a 41-yard kick there in the opening drive. That was, 16 plays? Was it that long? Like it was last week? It was 14 plays, 52 yards. They just love to have these long drives with a ton of plays and only 3 points. So they were able to get that in the opening drive. Pinheiro back from the groin issue, healthy. That's good to know. Matthew Wright, too, is somebody who the Panthers still have on the roster, and he had that 50-plus yarder last week and has looked pretty solid. It's hard to find 2 good kickers, and the Panthers have that right now. Zane Gonzalez went off to San Francisco. That did not work out. He's, again, injured, has a calf issue. He's probably going to be cut. No, he's not. He's definitely going to get cut. And the 49ers might be looking for a kicker after they got rid of Robbie Gould. Maybe the Panthers can make another trade and send Matthew Wright there. That's a trade piece. I know people are wondering, hey, could we trade Terrace Marshall? Oh, could the Panthers trade Yetur Gross-Matos? Are there trade pieces out there? The trade chip is a kicker, because that is something that can directly impact winning and losing. We have seen it. I don't know if you add Yetur Gross-Matos to your team, if you're somebody else, if that's going to directly impact you. Probably not. Same thing with Terrace Marshall. But a kicker, that can win and lose you games. So, yeah, that's a piece the Panthers have on the roster that they absolutely should be trying to find a way to maybe make a trade for trade him away and get some assets. As they, of course, have given up a lot to get Bryce Young. I would love to see that happen. Andy Dalton made his preseason debut through a pick. Whatever. Here's the thing, y'all. Hopefully this is the only time we ever see Andy Dalton play football for the Carolina Panthers until next preseason, if he's still on the roster. Don't want to see him play at all this season, and that's the hope. Same thing with Matt Corral, who 4 of 12 wasn't great, but hopefully we never see Matt Corral play a regular season game, because that means Bryce Young stays healthy. And, okay, if he plays a regular season game, let it be mop-up duty. But in the NFL, there's not a lot of mop-up duty anyways. But so Andy Dalton, we saw him out there. I think it was good for him to get some live game reps just to be ready. Wasn't great, but hey, whatever. So Andy Dalton went out there. Defensive takeaways: Brian Burns, Justin Houston, Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, Frankie Louvu, and Dante Jackson all inactive. Burns healthy, Houston healthy, Brown healthy, Thompson and Louvu healthy. Dante dealing with an ankle. How serious is that? We'll find out later. And just would hate for that to be another thing we got to deal with this year with Dante Jackson, because I've said to y'all, it's not a matter of if, it's just when. And when it happens, are Keith Taylor and CJ Henderson ready to go? And you got to think too, Troy Hill, he signed this week. Dante already had the ankle issue. That happened last week. You don't think they brought in Troy Hill knowing that Dante Jackson is not somebody they can rely on to be healthy? I think that's the case, that they brought him in knowing that Dante can't be counted on. Not to say that Dante's not a good player, just the last 2 seasons I told you can't count on him. So it sucks he's injured right now. Maybe it's not that serious, but that's something obviously to monitor. You don't want they're a pretty banged up team just from the injury report heading into the regular season. Still 16 days until they play. I guess 15 days now as we are sitting here on Saturday, live at least, and whenever the hell you might listen. So it might be 14 days by the time you listen to this, or 13. I don't know. Yeah, Dante, a little concerned about that. I had already mentioned Gross Matos, Kobe Jones started every game outside linebacker. Said it really fast. Eku Leota was in there on third down with the starters, the starters. He's somebody I think is probably one of those guys they want to store on the practice squad. Former edge rusher out of Auburn. I mean, outside linebacker, edge rusher, however you want to define him, out of Auburn. So that's another guy to look at. The other inactives: Chark, hamstring; Marshall, back; Sanders, groin, precautionary. Already mentioned some of the defensive guys. Anderson in play. Barno, he should still be good because of special teams prowess. Deontay Brown. So that probably third year in a row. Deontay Brown not going to make the roster here in Carolina. Corbett, pup, as we know. Cam Irving. Will be interesting to see how that works out with him. Sam Franklin, he's fine. He'll be on a roster. Haynes, of course, back, healthy roster. Chuba can be on the roster. Dante, just talk about him. Greg Maben, don't even know who that is. But hey, fun to be here in Carolina. Cade Mays, he'll be good. Mac McCain, no clue who that is either. Lavisha Chenault, he's almost out of concussion protocol. Taylor Stallworth, I guess maybe he's a fifth defensive lineman. He has experience. He's a veteran. It would make sense maybe. We'll see. Stephon Sullivan, see ya. Jordan Thomas, see ya. Stan Thomas Oliver, would like to see him stay here, but that's one of those ones they got to figure out as they have roster cut down day coming up on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, as I'll be live after every Carolina Panthers game and anytime there's any breaking news out there. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where this upcoming Friday, for one final time until hopefully February, but probably January, I'll answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. Then once the regular season starts, I think it will be the 6th of September, it'll start being a weekly Wednesday mailbag, which will be done live on YouTube on Tuesday evenings, probably around like 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But you can still tweet at me or DM me at Julian Council to get those questions in. I'll primarily, at least at the beginning, answer the questions from the people who ask me questions in the chat and in my DMs. And then whatever live chat questions are out there, I'll start answering those. So makes it very important for you to ask very good questions, because if you don't ask a good question, I'm not going to answer it on the show. So at me or DM me. And then, of course, once we start being live, you can just hit up the chat live on YouTube. But in the meantime, y'all, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And I will talk to you on Tuesday. Goodbye.